For a moment, yeah. Hello, everyone. Happy New Year. Welcome to 2018. I hope it was a great transition for you. It was for us here in the De La Mora Interpreter Training, and we are super excited about 2018 and our new and improved platforms and the invitation to all of you to join us to become interpreters in the field. I have, as I said before, muted everyone, but if you need to unmute to ask a question, we're going to give you that opportunity. But what I want to call your attention to is you have a chat function, and if you send any questions or concerns through the chat, Claudia Slava is here, and she'll be taking down questions, and if necessary, communicate them to me, and we'll answer them as they go. What I was going to propose first, I see already one of the chats, so what I'm going to propose first is I'm going to do a short presentation of what we're going to do, and then we will continue with the presentation, and we'll give ample time for all of you to answer all of your questions. So I'm going to start sharing my face. Again, welcome everyone. My name is Agustin Servín de la Mora. I'm a federally certified court interpreter. I'm also a certified medical interpreter, or CMI, and I'm the president of De La Mora Interpreter Training. And I want to share with you, first of all, my experience. I have been working in the field of interpretation for the last 30 years. I started my career as an interpreter in the courts, and I did this for several years, and then I started training interpreters, and then I got very interested in the field of medical interpretation. So I am here today sharing with you what I have learned about both medical and legal interpretation in the United States for the last 25 years. I wanted to share with you, first of all, how did I become an interpreter? And some of you that are already in the field interpreting or thinking about it probably became interpreters just like I did. I was living in Tampa, Florida at the time. I was a teacher at a school of languages called Berlitz. And one of my students was an attorney who asked me if I wanted to do a deposition for them. And my first question, of course, was what a deposition was. I had no idea. And so I became interested and intrigued about what it was. So I asked, and he explained to me that it was very simple. All you have to do is, I'll ask a question in English, you'll answer it, you interpret that, and my person will then answer in Spanish, you interpret that. It's as easy as that. You want to do it? I was not exactly sure, but then I discovered that it paid more than what I was making as a teacher, actually quite a bit more, like double the hourly pay. So that made me a lot more interested, and I decided to give it a try. So I went to interpret for this attorney and her client, and of course I got my first lesson in interpretation, which was as soon as a question was posted to me, and it was asked what happened, the lady said something in Spanish to the effect of, I went to the mall with my sister and her daughter. Not knowing anything about interpretation, when I interpreted that into English, I said, she says that she went to the mall with her sister and her daughter. And of course, the attorney immediately was confused and said, well, whose daughter? And I thought it was very clear because it was in Spanish, and it was in the first person, it was very clear. So the attorney gave me my first lesson and said, hey, please interpret in the first person, or forget the she said and he says, and that'll make it a lot easier. So my interpretation became from she says something to I went to the mall with my sister and her daughter. And then, of course, it was very clear whose daughter we were talking about. At the end of this deposition, the attorney told me I did a good job. I felt good about it, but I'm not even sure if I really did a good job. I just was told I did. But I was also told that I should go to the courts and offer my services as an interpreter because they were hiring interpreters at the time. And I did. I went to the courts. I talked to the person in charge who told me to come back the next day. I did. And it turned out that that was my first assignment. They sent me into a courtroom. They gave me a few instructions, and boom, I was an official court interpreter. And I found the experience gratifying, but terrifying. I had never been in a court of law. I didn't know where to stand. I didn't know when to start speaking. But somehow I stumbled to it and did the best I could. But I really found it fascinating and interesting. And I went to talk to the gentleman who had given me this first assignment, who introduced me to the other interpreters, who, lucky for me, were experienced interpreters who were very interested in actually becoming professional interpreters. So I started working as as a freelance interpreter in Tampa, Florida, and started training with my colleagues. And the first thing I realized right away is I didn't know a single thing as to how to interpret or what is it that I needed to be an interpreter. So after a few years, I started putting together a list, and through the years, I have perfected the system that we have created here in De La Mora to train interpreters based on what I learned right away when I was an interpreter in the courts in Tampa. And the first thing that I know is, well, what is it that I need to be an interpreter, a really trained, certified interpreter? And well, I found out that I had to interpret accurately for individuals with high levels of education and large vocabularies, like the judge and the attorneys. And they would say things like, you shall be remanded to the authorities for non-compliance of a previous order of this court. And that sounded great, but it was very difficult to transfer that language for me into my language of expertise, which is Spanish. But I also discovered that when people answered, some of the people who were accused of crimes, their limited knowledge of English was not the only thing. It was that their vocabulary was different. They had lower registers. They had used a lot of colloquial expressions. Some of them used sayings and proverbs, and some of them even foul language. And that was, of course, a different experience for me to try to transfer that meaning correctly. I quickly also discovered that I needed to have good public speaking skills, because when you're in a court of law, you have to project your voice and you have to be able to let everybody know what's being said in both languages. And finally, I really realized that I had to be ready, because some of the things that you hear were difficult. So my experience in the courts propelled me to start investigating which other areas the interpreters were used. And I found that, of course, in hospitals and in doctors' offices, every day people were there and they needed interpreters. So my father was a physician, and I studied with a lot of physicians when I was living in Mexico. I myself studied psychology, but I was always interested in the medical field. And I found it interesting to go and start getting acquainted with the medical field. So I offered my service as a medical interpreter. And I was hired to do some cases. And of course, you hear some very shocking, traumatic things. Lucky for me, I was already prepared for that, because in the courts I had heard certainly some ugly things too, about murder and mayhem and things like that. So, but in the medical cases, I have to confess, sometimes it was very tough for me to have to communicate to somebody that they were going to lose a limb, or they had terminal cancer or something. So an interpreter has to be prepared mentally to face these things. And the truth is that I've been doing this for 30 years, and I'm still learning every day. I was talking to a very good friend of mine, and she was throwing at me some medical terms in English, and I was challenged. Even though I've been certified for a while and I've been doing interpretation for a long time, some of the terms that she told me, I was not sure about how to say them in the other language. Some things that could be simple, like the equivalent, the terms were in Spanish, but the equivalent of maybe feeling numb, or numbness in your arm, or tingling, or having a very dull pain. And when I heard those words in Spanish, I found it a little difficult. And I remember distinctly the word fever. So the word fever, do you have a fever versus do you have temperature? You know, high temperature, do you have a temperature? So things like that are things that we are going to continuously learn in our process to become an interpreter. Now, when I first started in this business, as I told you, there was no such thing as certification at all. To become an interpreter, the test was quite simple, for me at least. Do you speak Spanish? Yes. Can you be here tomorrow? Yes. You're in. That was my test. And for many years, and unfortunately even in certain locations, that's still the case, that when medical offices or hospitals need or require the services of an interpreter, many times they just recruit anybody who claims to be bilingual. Fortunately, things are changing little by little, and they're changing especially because of one or many, I should say many cases in which the person who was not a certified interpreter or a trained interpreter misinterpreted a word and caused tremendous problems. And there's a famous case here in Florida where a person was misdiagnosed due to the interpreter using the incorrect term, and the doctors misunderstanding what was affecting this patient. Today, we have a way to get certified as medical interpreters, and that's why we're all here today, to learn about certification in the field of medical interpretation. And there are two basic agencies in the United States where you can get your certification as a medical interpreter. The first one that we're going to talk about or mention is NBCMI, the National Board of Certification for Medical Interpreters. And you can see the website right there. If you follow their protocol, you can become a CMI, Certified Medical Interpreter, which is the credentials I hold as a medical interpreter. We also have another association, CCHI, and we can get certified by CCHI also. Both NBCMI and CCHI are at this point recognized in the United States are the two bodies that can grant certification to medical interpreters. And I want to call your attention to this for a little bit, because when you go out there in the real world and start hearing about being a certified interpreter, certification certainly is kind of difficult to ascertain, because sometimes people get a training and they get a certificate of training and they believe that that makes them certified. The truth is that if you don't hold something that is called a CMI or a CHI by one of these organizations, then you're certainly not a certified medical interpreter. But what we're here to share with you is, how do you become one? How do you go from being a bilingual person who is interested in the field, or who's probably working in the field already? And one of the things that I have been asked more than once is, hey, well, I'm already working in the field, should I get certified? I would say absolutely, especially because more and more medical organizations and providers are asking for credentials from the interpreters. Now that it's out there that certification exists, and now that there is knowledge about the potential problems of using non-certified interpreters, certification has become a more important issue. So let's compare a little bit CCHI and NBCMI. NBCMI, I'm sorry, there's a typo, there's NBCMI. Both organizations are nationally recognized and equally accepted, as I said before. Agencies that are hiring interpreters, more and more are asking if you are certified, and if you are not, they're asking you to go get certified. The cost to get certified is about $400 to $500 for the whole process. That includes the first and the second exams that we're going to talk about. Both organizations have a written exam and an oral exam, and both of them require that you first pass the written exam and then you face the oral examination. They are very similar, both exams, but there's for an interpreter, you might be thinking, well, so what should I do? Should I become a CHI or NBCMI or a CMI? And the truth is, it really depends on several factors. Number one is testing days. For some interpreters, they want to do it faster than others, and the testing dates are more available or more convenient depending on your situation. Also, the locations, where is the exam being offered? I can tell you now that to become a CMI, now they have been able to make it very convenient, and you can become a CMI without leaving your house, because now you can take the exam from the comfort of your own house. And of course, it depends which languages are available, and depends which is your language of expertise. There are some that offer certification available, alternative other than certification, and but it's just in a written form. Now, the written exam on CCHI side focuses a little bit more on managing the interpreter encounter. How do you do your, what we call your SIFs, controlling the flow and managing the communication, using informing the patient and the provider what is the role of the interpreter. And the CHI, of course, has a small simultaneous component of the oral exam. On the other hand, the MBCM and the languages offered by CHI are Spanish, Mandarin, and Arabic. So if your language is included in this group and you are up to do simultaneous interpretation, for instance, then you might decide to go and do CHI. On the other hand, if you want to do NBCMI and become a CMI interpreter, as you can see, some of the languages are the same, like Spanish and Mandarin, but CHIs can also be certified in Russian, Cantonese, Korean, or Vietnamese, but not in Arabic. So if you're an Arabic interpreter, you might decide, well, then I'm definitely going to go CHI route because they have the language that I am an expert in. Alternative certification and NBCMI is in the works. That means they don't offer any alternative, as opposed to CHI that offers a little alternative to being certified. On the written exam for the CMI, focuses more on medical terminology and less on the flow or managing the interpreting encounter. The reality is that I'm taking the CHI this year because I want to be certified by both, and maybe some of you decide to get certified by one and then go and get your double certification. CCHI and NBCMI both require that you, before you take even the written exam, as part of the application, you have to provide them with proof that you have taken and passed a 40 hours approved medical certification, approved medical education. So both CCHI and NBCMI are going to ask you, you need at least 40 hours of training. I encourage you to start your training as soon as possible because there's a lot of talk about increasing the number of hours required for certification, for testing. So for the time being, 40 hours is what both are requiring. Additional requirements are going to vary slightly, and of course, we're going to ask you to go to their website and get the specifics depending on your decision of which one to take first. In many cases, they might ask you for proof of language proficiency, or what is your experience, or your general education. At this point, the most important part of the prerequisites is definitely the fact that you have to take the 40-hour training. Now, when I started in this business, most people didn't even know of the existence of being an interpreter as a career. Nobody thought about it as a career, and most interpreters were almost volunteers. As a matter of fact, when I say almost, I should say they were volunteers. Many of the people I met in the field at the beginning of my career, especially in hospitals, were volunteers. People who were bilinguals and decided that they wanted to help. And I think that that's what is typical of the people that are in this field. I myself think that a lot of us are helpers. We want to help people. We want to help communication. We like it, and that's why we are involved in this process. But is it a good career? I would say it is. Many people in this field that I know make a living, and actually a pretty good living as interpreters or translators in the United States of America, both as employees and as freelancers. In the field of freelancing, which is, I would say, probably a large majority of the interpreters in the United States work as freelancers. The tendency is going up as far as being employed by big companies that are offering services like video remote interpreting and telephonic interpreting. Therefore, not only the urban areas will continue to provide the largest number of jobs, now some jobs might be provided even in less urban areas because of telemedicine and remote interpretation. It's very flexible. If you are a freelancer, and even people who I know work for video remote interpreting companies have very flexible schedules, perfect for people. I know of people who have children who prefer to send their kids to school and then work from home. So when the kids come back home, they're still there to receive them, and they can match their schedules to the schedules for the kids. It's very flexible. If you're a freelancer, you still have that absolute flexibility. The next question, of course, is how much do interpreters make? According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average income for interpreters last year was about $44,000. I can tell you as employees, that's about right, but freelancers can make that and more depending on the area where they live. And I know for a fact that many freelance interpreters establish little communities of interpreters where they can work with each other and provide more coverage and therefore increase their income. I know, I don't know that they have, the Bureau of Labor Statistics has freelance income in their sites right now, but I can tell you from personal experience that I know that interpreters in this area, I live in Orlando, Florida, for those who you don't know, can easily make $50,000 once they are established as medical interpreters in the field. How do interpreter agencies pay? Well, it depends. Some agencies pay you straight up. You are hired by the agency. One of the nice things about being a freelance interpreter, you always get paid. It's the standard in the industry to get paid 2 hours minimum. So sometimes you might even work less than 2 hours, you'll still get paid 2 hours. And when I say agencies, there's a multitude of agencies that work with freelance interpreters, some really large companies, some medium-sized companies, and some even small companies. I know some companies here in Orlando who don't even have a single employee. All of their interpreters are freelancers, and they work with 5 or 6 of them on a regular basis. Those freelancers keep very busy, and it's not uncommon for a freelance medical interpreter to work for 2, 3, or more agencies, so they're always busy and running around and covering assignments in the field. If you're the kind of person that likes to be on the field and move around and not being tied to a desk, this is a perfect situation to become a freelance medical interpreter. Some of the interpreters, like I said before, like to, or it's more convenient for them to be passive in one location. Video remote interpreting is becoming the standard in many locations. Interpreters appear via video. It's not a coincidence we're having this class, this chat with each other over a remote platform, and these platforms are used to provide interpreter services in hospitals and clinics throughout the country. That gives tremendous flexibility both to the medical establishment and to those interpreters. So I know of interpreters that work exclusively as video remote interpreters. They work 8 hours a day from home or from an office, from a call center, and then they go home and that's it. But the patients they see and help are not only in their area, they might be even in another country. That can happen easily. So also there's hospitals that hire interpreters full-time. We know that we have one of the main hospitals here in Orlando has about 6 or 7 full-time Spanish medical interpreters in their staff, and they hire freelancers not only for Spanish but for other languages. Now, how hard is the certification process? Well, it depends how you look at it and what you call hard. Right now, we know the passing average for first-time takers is about 20%. That means 1 of every 5 people who takes the test will be successful and pass the requirements to become certified interpreters. So the question would be, why is the passing rate so low? And the answer, I think, is quite simple. And that is that many people who attempt to pass, especially the written exam, have had no training other than maybe those 40 hours, and that's it. They never continued their education. They did no field practice. They just took the class very quickly, and then they took the test. And one of the things that we have to be very clear and is part of the process is that the first 40-hour class is always language neutral, which means a person that might be deficient, and when we call it language neutral, what we mean is it's done in English. So because the class is done all in English and the practices are done in English and the groups are many times of people who speak all of them English, but then several different languages, the practices are not always done in the other language, but the oral examination is done in both languages, and that's probably why some people don't realize this until a little too late. So because it's costly to become certified and there's low passing rates, what should be done about it? And this is where I have dedicated most of my professional life, to educate and offer training for interpreters so they don't have this ugly disappointment of going and taking this test and not passing it. I strongly believe that training, education, and practice is what differentiates a person who is successful passing the certification exam and somebody who doesn't. I have for the last 30 years been training interpreters, and today we're introducing you to the 40-hour signature medical interpreter program that we have here at De La Mora. It's something that we have been working hard to produce. It is an online class, but it is live instruction. I think this is very important. There's a lot of people that are going out there taking classes that are what we call asynchronous, meaning there's no live professor there, there's no live instructions, there's no communication back and forth with the members of the group. You have to do it on your own. And as many of us know, this becomes a little bit more difficult. Now, we offer that kind of training in our company too, but it is my belief that especially if you're new in the field and you really want to get into the process of learning how to do this right, you should participate in a live class. We have this 40-hour training. As you know, it is mandatory to be able to take the exam with either one of the associations. As I said before, it's language neutral, means it's conducted all in English. The next class starts very soon, January 29. So we invite you. I'm not sure. Claudia is, I think, answering chats in the other room, but I think we might have some spaces for the 29th. But if not, we're going to start one soon. When we finish this webinar, everybody's going to get a link to see when the class starts. They're going to be in the evening from 8 to 10 p.m. We have found this like a very good, convenient schedule for most people because it's a little late for us people who live on the Eastern Standard Time, but people who live in the Pacific time get at 5 o'clock. And one of the things that I have to tell you, when I first started training interpreters, we did all of our classes in person, live. And when I first heard about this online training, I was a little skeptical myself because I was so used to interact with the students and being able to go and write something to them. And I didn't think that online was capable to deliver that. I have to tell you, we're very impressed with the platform. We can talk to each other. We can see each other. We can show you our screen. And we can separate you in rooms for practice. But most importantly, what I discovered is that instead of having to do 2 very intensive days, or in this case, 5 very intensive days of 8 hours a day to comply with this 40-hour training, which I had to take, by the way. And when I took it, I have to confess, by Wednesday night, my brain was fried, and I knew I still had 2 more days to go. It was tough. 8 hours a day, learning, trying to cram on all this information. And a great result of this online classes is we discovered, this is a lot more palatable for participants. You participate for 2 hours at a time, 20 classes, and an extra bonus. We discovered that by having a week in between classes gave you the opportunity as a student to only study that portion that you had to study, do your homework, and then come back and share with the class what was going on, how you felt, and ask questions. And an extra bonus that I discovered while doing this is the fact that many of us find it difficult to study on our own. And I have to tell you, many people would take this 40-hour training and never open a book after the 40-hour training that was live. But what happens with these online classes is that people feel a little more responsible because there's some kind of accountability. As a matter of fact, my word for 2018 is accountability. I think that if we're going to progress in our ability to be medical interpreters, if you really want to learn anything, you need accountability. And I think I personally can share with you that when I have failed to do some of my goals is because I wasn't accountable to anybody. So I gave myself a lot of breaks. Well, I'll start tomorrow. We know all that. So instead, by having to be in class every week, every other class, you have to show up and talk about what your homework was. And that has been very effective to us. The program, of course, that we're offering is approved for the 40-hour education requirement for national certification in both cases. How much does it cost? And I really invite you to do that. The cost for our seminar is lower or at par with every other seminar. If you find them there's not that many, of $725. And that includes the 40-hour training on a live instruction. By the way, I should mention that when you take the live instruction, the classes are always recorded. So even if you didn't attend the class, or even if you did, and you want to review the concepts or look at the PowerPoint again or listen to what the instructor had said, you can access the class and you will have access to all the classes while the program is going on. As I said before, my interest is really to give you the opportunity to learn and be prepared for this exciting field. I strongly believe that we need a bunch of interpreters yet. I have heard statistics that go all over the place, between 24% and as much as 49% growth in the next 10 years. And with this globalization, it wouldn't surprise me if many interpreters are going to be working globally from now on. I have a friend of mine who just did a conference in China as an interpreter while she was at home. And she was participating as an interpreter, which I thought was incredible. So technology is giving people access, and more people are recognizing that interpreters, like many other professions, are professionals that need training, development, and need the respect to be unpaid properly as professional interpreters. All the materials, of course, are included in the price of the 40-hour training. If you are interested in joining us, I'm going to put up the link in case you are interested in clicking right away to enroll. And now that we've had this time, I think we're going to open the floor for some questions. I don't know if Claudia is going to come here and pose the questions, or...
Hi, everyone. This is Claudia. I just want to let you know that all you have to do if you want to participate in the question and answer section is you'll simply have to unmute yourself, or you can just go ahead and hover over this meeting and click on the chat feature at the bottom of your screen. You can go ahead and type in your question, and I will read it out loud to make sure that Agustin knows. So we'll give you a few minutes to come up with your questions, and we'll answer them.
I saw a lot of chats before, Claudia, where people asking questions, and do we have one that we have lingering? I see here one that says, are there an organization offering certification for Romanian, Spanish, or Italian? Definitely for Spanish, not yet for Romanian or Italian. Do we get a certificate at the end? Absolutely. You will get a certificate stating that you attended the 40 hours, because that certificate is required for you to take the written exam. So either organization that you decide to join to get certified will demand that you show them that certificate. Do we do one-on-one tutoring? Absolutely. If you contact us through our website, we definitely offer you one-on-one tutoring. We can do some testing. We have some materials where, and this has been also very successful. We have had people who come and take a practice exam with us and then get a one-on-one tutoring with one of our instructors who can then specifically guide them. What about practice courses, practical sessions? During the 40-hour training, we have continuous practices. The instructors will give you homework to do every day, and you will do practice throughout the 40 hours. That's part of the curriculum. If you need some more, of course, we have specific training on consecutive, simultaneous, and side translation, and we do have some materials that you can acquire. Is training available for Arabic? Yes, CHI does offer training for Arabic interpreters. What if I want to become medical translator instead of interpreter? Good question. If you want to become a translator, we recommend you go to the American Translators Association site. And I don't think they have specializations for medical. They have a generalist certification as a translator. Portuguese language opportunities are there. We still don't have a certification for medical. We have them for legal. But definitely there's, in certain areas, here in Orlando, for instance, there's quite a bit of use of Portuguese interpreters. Do we have regular classes? I don't know what you mean regular, but if you mean in person, we do have some in-person classes. For the medical field, I think we might have one this year. We have a conference coming up in November where we do have classes for both medical and legal interpreters. Is this training specifically online? The one that we're talking about today, yes. Is it live? Yes, you will see an instructor live, and the class is conducted live every class. I'm trying to keep up because the questions are coming fast and furious, but I hope I haven't if I didn't answer your question, you can post it again. Can the participants review the slides of online classes? Yes, absolutely. You will have access not only to the slides, you'll have the whole recording of the class, so you'll get the audio and the PowerPoint. How much per hour for private classes? Claudia, I'll let you answer that because I'm not sure. In the meantime, I'll answer the next one. How much CCHI certificate costs? It's about $400 to $500. You have to pay for the written exam first, and then for the oral. It's about $200 for one and $250 for the other. Around that. It's 2018. They might change the prices a little bit. Yes, the 40 hours is preparing you for a medical interpreter certification, and it's required for you to take the exam on either one of the organizations. After the 40 hours, what you need to go to their website, which we have a link for, and you need to request them. You send them the information, you fill out a form, you send your 40-hour training, and when they get when you get accepted, they'll send you a link to register for the written exam. Once you pass the written exam and you're informed of that, you can go get the oral examination. Expected income for translators similar to interpreters. It kind of is, although I have to tell you, I'm not an expert in translation, so I'm not sure. There's a lot more competition. for translation. There's an answer there for the, it's $99 per hour for private classes. Do you get a 40-hour certificate after the training by mail or email? Either way, if you prefer to have a hard copy, we'll send you one. If not, we'll email you. The exams written and oral are online. Yes, for NBCMI, for CMI. I'm not sure for CCHI if they have reached that peak, but I know for CMIs, which is the one I have, yes, both of them can be done online. You're welcome. While we're waiting for more questions, I want to invite everybody, please visit our website. Obviously, this is a small universe of our big universe of what we do here at De La Mora. We train interpreters in both fields. We do exam preparation. We do curriculum development. And so please visit us at our website. And if you have any questions that we haven't answered, once we close this session, that doesn't mean you cannot talk to us. You can call us on the phone, chat with us online. You get like a syllabus of the training? Yes, you do. Absolutely. I live near Orlando. Can I visit the school to get more information? Yes, you can. We're moving very soon, but yes, you can come and get more information in person. Are you coming to Chicago this year at all? I might. I don't know. I don't know if I'll do medical interpretation, but we have somebody in Chicago that might be interested in organizing a class for us. If we get enough people, absolutely, we will go to Chicago. We prefer to go in the summer, though, because right now we hear it's a little cold. Do we have materials to purchase? Yes, we do. We have some CDs for those of you who still have CD drives, and we have some downloadable information, and we'll come up with some more this year. Any requirements to register for the training? Not at this point. As time goes by, we're probably gonna require a test for language proficiency, but not at this point. You can just register with us. What would you suggest me to do while starting as an interpreter? I have no experience, but I'm eager to learn. What would you advise me to start with? Definitely to take the class, because when I started, I wish I had taken a class first. Because when I went and jumped in as an interpreter, I made a lot of mistakes, and I almost quit because I was so frustrated. So I would say take a class first, depending on where you live and which area you want to start, but if it's medical or legal. But please give us a call or send us an email. We'll answer you more extensively, the person that asked about being an interpreter. Carolina Quintero. I'm glad you're eager. That's how I was when I started, but I strongly suggest first take a class before you jump in and try to interpret. Do we get any books or material for our classes? Yes. Yes, you do. You get your workbook, and yes, it is included in the payment. Are you willing to do a Chicata conference on medical interpretation late May? If I have the time, absolutely. We do a lot of conferences, and yes. Any piece of advice to work as an MCI in the UK? I just graduated as an interpreter in Argentina. I moved here 8 months ago. Now I feel it's time to move into the profession. I don't have any knowledge of the UK, but I would say that it wouldn't be difficult to go to Google and find out interpreter organizations in the UK. They definitely have to have, they're a lot more organized than we are here. Interpretation in Europe is considered a much more organized profession than it is here because it's a lot older. I would strongly suggest to go, but if you send us an email, we'll try to help you out. Is getting the medical easier than getting court interpretation? I don't know that it's easier. It certainly depends on the level of skill you already have and your vocabulary. Of course, If you already have vocabulary in the legal field, it's probably easier to be a legal interpreter, but it really depends on what you want to do. I wouldn't call one easier than the other, but it could be, especially I know somebody that already had a lot of knowledge in the medical field, and when she took the test, she passed it right away because she had already the vocabulary down pat and had been working as an interpreter in the medical field for a little bit. So obviously that was easier for her. If there is a class I won't be able to follow online, is there any penalty for this? No, there's no penalty at all. You just have to make sure that you watch it, you watch the video, and you catch up with the homework. And if you have any concerns or questions, you can always email your instructor to catch up for the class that you missed.
I will add to this that there is a test, a final test at the end of this course that you must pass in order to receive the certificate of completion. So you just have to make sure that you keep up with the class by watching the previously recorded sessions and keeping up with your homework. But that is the only condition. You must pass a written exam at the end of this course.
Alrighty, what is the passing rate at the end of this course? I don't know that we keep stats, but it's pretty high because we make sure that we give you all of the tools. The passing rate, you mean of our class, or do you mean of the exam, the medical exam? Because that's different. In our class, if you don't pass the test, we make sure we give you the tools, we review with you until you do. I want to be an interpreter instead of going to college because they don't have courses for that here in Orlando. So where do I apply job and this certificate? What kind of jobs opportunities? Okay. Once you have the certification as a medical interpreter, you can apply for jobs in the hospitals here in Orlando. As I said, Florida Hospital has staff interpreters, but I also have freelance interpreters that are at work. I strongly recommend as soon as you get certified, apply to there's several local offices. If you want, if you contact me, Carla Salas, if you contact me, I will give you a link to one of the, once you're certified, we'll make sure that you're connected with one of the local agencies so you can start getting jobs from them.
Yes, we actually have quite a few connections with a few different agencies. So we'll be happy to assist you guys after you take the class and be here with you step by step while you become a working professional.
The question in how much do they get paid in Chicago, I would say the national average is about the same, about $45,000 as an employee, and between $25 and $45 an hour as a freelancer. All right, I think that we're not getting any more. Do you have any agency connection in the New Jersey, Philadelphia? Absolutely, we do. We specifically in New Jersey, Philadelphia, Delaware, we certainly do. Actually, what I mentioned is for Spanish. The other languages are all over the map, and of course, the higher demand and the lower offer, the more exotic the language is, they probably can charge a little bit more. If you're certified in languages like Vietnamese or Mandarin, you certainly command more than what I said.
All right, guys, any more questions?
Connections agencies in Chicago, maybe. Please contact us. I'm sure we can find connections in Chicago. And remember, we will connect you to agencies, but we like to connect people who are already certified rather than just somebody who says they want to do the job. So we're very careful with our connections. So we would connect you or give you the connections after you get certified or you're in the process of at least having taken the training and passing the written exam. The January 29 course, when is it ending? There's 20 classes. Is it once a week or twice a week?
It tends to be twice a week, but the schedule, the full schedule and the full set of dates is on that link that I keep sending you guys. So make sure that you click on there and you'll be able to see the full schedule for the course.
No, for all states. The certification, if you're certified as a medical interpreter, you're certified in the whole country. So if you're a CMI or a CHI, that's recognized by all the states because it's not a local exam. The written exam on our, if you're talking about the written exam for us here at the final, it covers all of the material that you covered during the classes. Ethics, cultural competency, managing the flow, and vocabulary and knowledge, basic medical terminology. All right, well, I appreciate your time and hanging out with us for a whole hour. Please contact us if you have any questions or comments. We'll be here to help you. Call us on the phone, send us an email, or chat with us online. We appreciate, we're going to end the meeting now, but we appreciate your time and effort. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.